Coming up, Rutherford Falls returns for Season 2. Indian Sports brings us an update on impressive female athletes. Plus, a Lakota Nation film premieres at Tribeca. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
This is the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez.
Amarawa Hopa, thank you for joining us. We start in Washington, D.C., where more federal funding is being made available to support Native language revitalization. Last week, the U.S. Department of Education announced $1 million in grant funding for language projects. Money will go to partial and full immersion projects. It will aim to expand and develop new language programs. Estimates show there are now over 200 tribal communities without first language speakers. Up until the 1990 legislation called the Native American Languages Act, Indigenous languages were only found in a few classrooms across the country. For links to all pre-application activities, visit the Office of Indian Education's website. In September, Natasha Peter, a fashion and jewelry designer from Ross River Dena Council, will be sending her work down the runway during New York Fashion Week. APTN's Sarah Connors has the story.
For Natasha Peter, culture is art. The Cascadena designer from Ross River, Yukon, is known for mixing fashion with tradition, values she incorporates with every stitch.
There was a part of me inside that was pulling towards my traditional skills because growing up, my parents had taught me to live off the land and everything. And I guess that part of me wanted to come out.
And I use a lot of the granny heel or the granny materials.
Based in Whitehorse, Peter's designs are hard to miss, like these granny hanky-inspired heels and this shawl adorned with bees.
Because you know all the bees and stuff are disappearing and everything, so I kind of made...
And now, one of the world's biggest fashion events is taking notice. Peter's designs will hit the runway at New York Fashion Week in September. Her work was selected for Rise New York Fashion Week, a show featuring emerging and independent fashion designers. For Peter, it's a dream come true.
And here I am going to New York, one of my goals that I've been wanting to achieve for the longest time.
But just a few years ago, that dream seemed out of reach. For 15 years, Peter struggled with addiction.
I didn't really have a youth because I drank most of that part of my life away.
5 years ago, she picked up a sewing needle and has been sober ever since.
It was healing me and I didn't know. And there I was, like 2 years of being sober. And I liked that feeling, so I kept going and I started achieving a lot of things.
Peter's business, Cascadena Designs, has customers from across Canada and the U.S. Last month, one of her dresses was worn at the Junos. Just recently, she made her fashion show debut at the Alexander Reserve in Edmonton. Her goal for New York Fashion Week? Make Cascadena Designs known to the masses.
And after my fashion show in New York, I imagine that everyone else is going to know who I am.
From addictions to the world's fashion stage, Peter hopes her journey will inspire the next generation of designers.
And I hope my story will help somebody to follow their dreams too, you know?
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
In Newtown, North Dakota, the Nuetza Hidata Sathnish College is announcing the opening of its Four Sisters Garden Greenhouse. This new area offers a revival of the Berthold Community Garden located 1 mile west of town. The community project received $112,000 in funding through the federally recognized Tribes Extension Program. The new greenhouse facility will be used by the college and the North Dakota State University for educational programming. Improvements to the community garden will increase their ability to teach youth and adult audiences about native agriculture and gardening. College President Twyla Baker spoke to ICT about what this space means for the community.
We have the capacity and the ability and the knowledge and the know-how and the energy to do this ourselves, to be able to sustain not just ourselves, but also those around us, our neighbors and our, the people that we live with. And we have this knowledge to share, and it's been there since forever. Everything that we need, we have within us already.
Baker says the community gardens are open for everyone to grow their own fresh produce. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Coming up, Brent Cowie catches up with Indian sports and meet the showrunner for Rutherford Falls. But first, it's the Lakota Nation versus the United States at the Tribeca Film Festival. Stay with us. An Indigenous film premieres this weekend at the Tribeca Film Festival in New York. The Lakota Nation versus the United States documents the dark history of the forced removal of the Lakota from the Black Hills. Jesse Shortbull is one of the filmmakers. Let's take a look at the trailer.
X marks the strange ways of time. How a century ago can feel like yesterday. And, quote, from this day forward feels like never. X marks an agreement. Whatever name one uses to refer to the Black Hills, it is unquestionably the place of our beginning. And another X marks this land as ours, unquestionably by treaty.
The movie highlights people who continue to fight for justice.
I think about my grandmother and some of the things that she done in the years, and that only exists in my mind. It's only a memory now. So if we could try to, in the best way possible, present just a slice of these people's lives in a very compelling and beautiful way, that could help their voices endure, especially when you consider the climate that we're in, where, like in the state of South Dakota, for example, Native history is still shunned, is still kind of kicked to the side, is still not brought to the forefold in a lot of our education curriculum. So having these voices, active voices, on a screen and telling that story, I hope that, will continue to help people realize how seriously things like the Black Hills issue are still pertinent today.
Shortbull says history is important to understand the lasting impact of treaties.
I work for my tribe, Oglala Sioux tribe, and the biggest challenge that I have to overcome is the lack of education when it comes to historical events of our tribe, and so a lot of people kind of perceive the treaty as just like this random scrap of piece of paper with no meaning, but in fact it has an incredible amount of meaning, and it's foundational to how the United States even came about. So people need to know that.
That was Jesse Shortbull, filmmaker for the Lakota Nation versus the United States. When we come back, meet the showrunner for Rutherford Falls. Indian Country Today is now ICT. We have another interview from the Reservation Economic Summit. ICT editor Jordan Bennett-Begay caught up with Sierra Teller-Ornelas.
Well, thank you for joining here today. Season 2 of Rutherford Falls is coming out. Can you tell us what to expect?
I'm so excited. It comes out June 16th on Peacock. And yeah, we're really leaning into the comedy this year. We're doing a lot of Native romance. I'm so excited. We have 2 new Native characters, Gunnedio Horn, who played Dear Woman on Reservation Dogs, and then Dallas Goldtooth from the 1491s and also from Reservation Dogs. And they're just really hilarious additions to the cast. We kind of get to see all of our favorite characters and just see how they sort of kind of carve out their own legacies that we sort of blew up in season 1.
Oh, amazing. And are there any lessons on season 1, I guess, on the behind the scenes that you're taking in, or that you took into season 2?
Yeah, definitely. I think, we had so much to do. I think there was like an urgency in season 1 because, we're the technically first Native American sitcom. And when we were making it, it was like, are we actually getting to do this? And so there was this like urgency to kind of put every single thing we could think of that we wanted to do in it. And I think in the second season, we allowed, I think, the characters and the stories to kind of breathe a little bit and also just really get to like explore them as people and see those human interactions. So we get to see a lot of like Terry and his wife or Regan dating and things like that.
Yeah, and that's what I really love with Rutherford Falls, because I think it's really difficult to hit a happy medium of you want to reach a Native audience and also a non-Native audience. I mean, was that a struggle at all in trying to create this show?
Not exactly. I think we wanted it to be like, is this something, if you were a Native person, you'd be like, oh my God, this is awesome that I'm getting to watch this. And then what was the funniest version of a story, So we wanted it to feel authentic and funny, and those were our 2 sort of guiding lights that we chased, and making sure that like Native people were always in on the joke, because I feel like for 100 years, Native people have been the joke on television and in film, and so that was like a really important thing to us.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. What about, your writer's room grew tremendously from just the social posts I see online. I can imagine what the conversations are like, the jokes, all the ideas. Can you provide like some insight on what that's like, on where the script goes or how that's rewritten or edited?
Yeah, definitely. Like we have a half Native writers room. We added a couple Native writers this year, AZ Dungy and Dash Turner, and we lost one unfortunately. But we really try to figure out from our lives. We kind of the first few weeks talk about like what have you had. With COVID, like a lot of people went home for a while, so a lot of us had stories from visiting our families. A lot of us will have the same thing that we're going through, and if it kind of excites us and we have a lot of anecdotes about that thing, like a lot of us tried to get home site leases this year and had struggles, and so that's one of the storylines of season 2, and how it feels like so absurd to try to do this thing of like that version of Land Back, right? Like it's like so difficult. And what are the comedy versions of it, but what is also like the authentic version of how that experience can feel for us. And so when we find a story idea that we're all excited by, then we'll kind of chase that story and see where it goes.
Oh, that's amazing. I really, that's the thing about these shows are coming up. 2 shows in the last year, everybody really resonated with those, especially young people. And I was curious, what advice you have for future writers?
Oh my God, I know, it just feels so wide open. Like I was talking to Sterling and we were saying how it's crazy that our kids are growing up in a world where there's 2 Native television shows, because like there were 0 when we were growing up.
Yeah, or they were terrible.
They were terrible. It's like Dr. Quinn. And so, I think that right now is such a beautiful time that I think all Indigenous people have an incredible story to tell. There's a line in season 1 that says, the history of Indigenous people is the greatest story never told. And I truly believe that. And I think that there are so many amazing like Native kids on TikTok making incredible media, and I'm so excited to see like what this next generation does. My only advice to them is keep doing it, keep putting it in front of people, and just keep telling your story.
No, and I think when you say it's storytelling rather than writing, it becomes a little more exciting, because I know there's some young kids who don't want to write.
No, and I come from a long line of storytellers. My mother's maiden name is Teller because that is what her great-grandfather did, and so I feel like Indigenous storytelling and television writing are linked together in this very organic way.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then now you're a writer and also a showrunner.
Yes.
what is it like to be a showrunner? Because you've been in the industry for a while, just working at this.
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of bosses, showrunners, and I'd pitch songs or I'd pitch ideas, and some of them would get in and some of them wouldn't. And being at this position, it's been so great to be like, we want the Hallucination to be co-curate or co-composers. We want Bethany Yellowtail's clothing, we want Jamie Kuma's clothing. We want all these very specific beaters. It has to be this beater. And it's like we did a Halloween episode and we did a lot of Easter egg costumes, and we were like, it has to look like this, and we like bringing up photos and things, and so it really is just incredible to have all these stories and then to have this platform to tell them.
And like you said, bringing in, I mean, you were saying on the panel earlier here at the Reservation Economics Summit that you got to bring in these other fashion designers and their apparel, beadwork artists, and even actors, and I think that's just incredible to culminate to this one season. Well, now in season 2.
Yeah. No, we do an episode where Regan goes to a gallery, and it's an artist, an Afro-Indigenous artist named Natalie Ball, and her work is so beautiful, and we were able to get a lot of pieces from different museums and collectors, and she was like, this feels like a real art opening. And so it's just kind of nice to champion not just our stories, but our art and our culture and our music.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I mean, did you have anything you wanted to add that you didn't?
No, just hoping everyone will watch Rutherford Falls Season 2, June 16th on Peacock.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
That was Sierra Teller-Ornelas with ICT editor Jordan Bennett-Begay. When we come back, Indian sports highlights women athletes. Indian Country Today is now ICT. Brent Cowie is a regular contributor to the ICT Newscast. Here's an interview he did earlier this week with ICT's Mark Trahant.
Indiansports.com covers Indigenous athletes. Joining us is its co-founder, Brent Cowie. He started this website in 2000 with John Harjo when they were college students. Welcome, Brent.
Hello, Mark. Good to see you again.
So let's focus on women's sports and start with Rogers State's, which, by the way, airs this program at 6:30 in the evening.
Yeah, it's great. Good to see everybody again. Yeah, we're at the tail end of the softball season for college sports, and Rogers State University, which is a Division II school out of Claremore, Oklahoma, just recently won the national championship in softball. But what's great about it is we have 15 Native American girls that participate on the squad, from starting roles to backup roles to freshmen, red shirts, and everything. So it was a great experience for all the girls. What's great about it too, I thought, was a handful of the girls were from some tribal schools, some reservation schools that were on the team. So good experience for them, and good experience, or good news for the Indian country sports world as well.
Is there anything that can happen for these athletes after college with softball?
There is a small, professional league of softball teams out there. I think there's like a 12-team league that exists out there. So there's always that opportunity to continue to pursue the ball. But a lot of these girls go back into the community and use their degrees to help out in the community.
I don't want to go too far on this, but one of the things that intrigues me about softball is, of all the sports, it's the one that requires the quickest reaction time, because that 60 feet between the pitcher and the plate is the quickest of any sport.
It is. It's really, sometimes you hear the term small ball, and basically, you think about baseball and power hitters and guys trying to hit it 400 feet, but softball is more of a strategy game. It's taking the tools that you have and use them to your advantage. Quick girls can just bunt the ball and they get to the base quicker, or you're not trying to really, hit a home run. You're just trying to get it in the outfield to advance the runner or get on base yourself. So it's a really strategy type of sport, and it's really fun to watch if you get a chance.
I also want to learn about Jenna Hui, who plays here in Phoenix.
Yeah, that was awesome. I mean, Phoenix College, which is a NJCAA Division II college there in Phoenix, they recently won the Division II National Championship for the Junior College Association out in Oxford, Alabama, recently. And I think what was cool about her experience with the championship game was she had a three-hit home run, or 3 runs came out on her home run. So, to get a home run in the championship game to help your team win the national championship, I mean, there's no better feeling than that, I'm sure. Also, they played against Murray State, which is a junior college out of Oklahoma, and they also had about 2 or 3 Native American girls on their squad as well. So it's kind of cool to see the girls, our Native American girls, get to the final game, the championship game, and compete against each other.
One other note worth following is the Women's College World Series, and I understand there are a number of Native athletes in there.
Yeah. The Women's College World Series is going to be starting their championship finals tomorrow, but they started play last Thursday, and we had 6 Indigenous athletes that were on 3 different teams. We had 3 girls from Oklahoma State. We had 2 girls from the University of Oklahoma, and we had 1 Native American from the UCLA squad who bowed out on the Monday's night game as well. So in the championship game, we'll have Oklahoma versus Texas in that championship game. So we'll be cheering on from Oklahoma, Riley Boone and Macy McAdoo.
Will those games be televised?
Yes, the championship games will be on ESPN, and they'll be Wednesday and Thursday, and if necessary on Friday as well. So hope people can tune in and check out those games and cheer on our Native American athletes.
I understand from Oklahoma State, we have a home run leader.
Yeah, Oklahoma State, again, they bowed out last night. They have Cheyenne Factor, who's Seminole, and Sydney Pennington, who's Cherokee. And she's the one who is she leads as a senior. She leads as the program's career home run leader at 47 home runs over her career. So a lot of talent. They're a partnership with the Nike N7 program, and they wear their turquoise jerseys for a Native American Heritage Game. So they're really embracing the Native American athletes at that institution.
And then I wanted to hear more about Seneca Curro.
Yeah, Seneca Curro, she plays for UCLA. She's from the Mission Band of Barona Indians, I believe. And she's a sophomore with the program, but she's played with the program for 3 years. She actually started in the College World Series when she was she played in the College World Series when she was a freshman. And now they come back as a sophomore. And she had a couple of hits in the game. I was able to visit with her after the game, and she was just really excited about her opportunity to come back and have a major role in the team this time, with the team being in the infield and the outfield and doing whatever the team needed to do to, try and win the games. Like I said, they advanced to the semifinals, and, they bowed out in a loss in the semifinals. But, she's a great player. She's going to be an impact player for their squad, and she'll be back, for her junior and senior season coming up.
We only have about a minute left, but I want to ask about Native American woman in the U.S. Open golf tournament.
We have Gabby Lameau. She's Shoshone and Paiute, and she was the first Native American woman to play in the U.S. Open golf tournament. She's been playing on the Epson Tour for the past 4 or 5 years, I believe, which is kind of like a pre-tour to the LPGA Tour. And she's just trying to get her tour card, and she was able to go to a U.S. Open qualifier and qualify for the U.S. Open. And, she got to play. She did make it into the weekend. It was her first time playing. She had a good experience. She had a wonderful time with it. And I'm sure we're going to continue to hear about her more and more in the future on the golf tours.
That was Brent Cowie from Indiansports.com. A Canadian cartoon series called Little Glooskap and the Legends of Turtle Island follows a young man who will one day become a great hero and warrior for his people. APTN's Angel Moore has the story.
Oh, Nita, Lita Hazipan Jopinupsk. What?
That is Little Glooskap, speaking Wolastoqey. He's the main character of the cartoon series called Little Glooskap and the Legends of Turtle Island, and he's played by multimedia artist Natalie Sapier of the Tobic First Nation. And it's the first time an animated series has been voiced in Wolastoqey.
every part of your spirit is awake, and then you start seeing your language everywhere. So I'm really excited to see this show be airing because I miss it.
The series follows the adventures of Glooskap as a boy. According to legend, he's said to have created landscapes and animals. Tara Audibert conceived the series and wrote, produced, and directed all of the episodes. Her aim is to preserve her language by teaching the youth.
I grew up on Sesame Street, and I probably know more Spanish than I do Willistaki. So just from watching that. So I think it's important that, the culture is within our entertainment stream, and especially for kids.
Grandmother Mimi Mewen is voiced by Imelda Purley. She's fluent in Wolastoqey and ensured the script was in the traditional language.
So what this is doing in the language, it's showcasing identity to be safe, identity to be shared, identity to be proud of, identity to be, celebrating.
Sapir says Little Glooskap was a challenge.
But you put him into a character, you're putting that action to it. And where I'm very new with telling stories this way, I was like, wow. So I cleared my schedule for like 3 months to focus on Little Glooskap. And it was such an amazing experience.
The 13 episodes of Little Glooskap and the Legends of Turtle Island begins airing on APTN in English, French, and Wolastoqey. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Tribeca, known as Halifax.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For more news, visit IndianCountryToday.com. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives. I am Aaliyah Chavez.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.